One of the features I love about this house is the recessed entryway, which is, if you look around the neighborhood, there really aren't any other homes that have this feature. I think the next street over has one or two, but it's not like, yeah, roofer's still doing his thing. Anyway, so none of these homes have those recessed entryways, except for this one. This is also the only brick ranch in the entire neighborhood. It's kind of a one-off, I guess. I don't know. But this door is actually featured prominently in many of these homes. It's a very common door for the time period. But anyway, let's take a look. So we've got a nice brick-clad wall. This is actually real brick. It's 1 width thick. Because you can see it from the attic. You can see it's a full-width brick that's tied to an interior studded wall. And you've got this nice concrete porch that's set into the foundation. And you've got these vinyl walls. Now, originally there was clearly some kind of a clapboard siding behind this, which is still there. This all looks well and good, but it's really a sheep in wolf's clothing, or a wolf in sheep's clothing. You can see that somebody tried to caulk around the bottom of the siding to mitigate water intrusion. That was not very effective, and as I'm about to show you, quite horrifying, as a matter of fact. And I've got work to do. I've got lots and lots and lots of work to do. So, without even getting into the details, I can tell you right off the bat that all that siding has to come off ASAP, and the walls need to be evaluated for further water damage, because oh boy, this one's a doozy. So this is one of the things my inspector pointed out, and he said, you're gonna have to do something about this sooner than later. So I'm gonna make this a priority project for the springtime. So you look at this concrete wall. It's painted with a black, very ineffective coating for holding back moisture. I'm gonna paint these walls. We'll get to that later. But you can see something's been going on here. You got streaks of what looks like water running down here and here, and it makes you wonder what the hell's going on. I mean, think about it. So I don't think I need to tell you what's been going on here. Water has been leaking for many, many years around that slab, or the porch, straight down into the basement. This door is completely rotted. This was here to hold a barrel of kindling. It's totally rotted out. So it's been going on for quite some time. Now, just how bad is the damage to the home's structure? Well, I gotta say this much. All right, for a 65-year-old home, I got off really, 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 really easy, because there is no water damage. In fact, when my roofer took off the original roof, he found that the boards, the decking, is in perfect condition. Perfect condition. He didn't have to replace a single board up there. So I got lucky. This house doesn't really have water damage anywhere, except for one tiny spot in the bathroom, which I will fix in this. But as water damage goes, this is pretty heavy duty. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about a home's structure. What are we looking at? Okay, so these boards here, that is your subfloor. Above that, we're going to find, I believe there's plywood on top of that, and on top of that, there's hardwood flooring. These are floor joists. That board that I'm pointing right there, that piece of wood right there, that is actually your rim joist that goes all the way around the perimeter of the house. That's the rim joist. And the wood underneath that rim joist, or underneath the floor joist, that is the sill of the home. So this house is constructed out of exact dimensional 2x8 floor joists, and it looks like possibly a 4x4 or 4x something rim joist. Sill plate. So it's pretty well built. Now, in certain sections of this house, they have doubled up or tripled up in some cases these joists. Now, I'm not really sure why. It seems like overkill to me because there's not a hell of a lot of weight on these joists. In fact, there's no wall. This isn't supporting a wall or anything. And if you go up into the attic, it's not like there's posts, every so many feet supporting the ridge of the roof. So the roof is completely supported by the perimeter walls. So it's not really clear to me, unless they were planning on eventually adding a fourth or fifth story into this home. It just seems like overkill, which is good. Because it means that with all the water damage that we have right now, the house is still structurally sound. And let's take a look at that damage in detail. So, and why it got even worse, because of stupid, lazy, idiot homeowners, of which I am the second homeowner, or second or third. Anyway, use my sawhorse as a makeshift ladder here. It's real safe. So, if we look close in here, now last night I started picking away at this. They say you don't pick your scabs, but sometimes you have to. I wanted to see how extensive this damage really was, and I was a little horrified. So let's take this insulation down, because it's blocking a very, very bad draft, because I can see daylight through there. If you look at my sill here, that's this thing right here, the damage goes all the way to about here, which is stupidly bad. What they did is the dumbest thing you could ever do when you have water damage. They injected it with spray foam. Spray foam, you should need a license to buy this stuff because it really causes damage, makes things worse. What the spray foam does is it helps the wood retain moisture for longer periods of time. Normally, it would just dry out. Water would come in, it would dry. You put spray foam in there, water comes in, and it takes up residence. So we have a lot of spray foam damage to this section of the sill. There is nothing supporting this floor joist. This is the only solid floor joist left in this section. And it's good. We want to maintain that. But there's nothing supporting it other than nails coming in through the rim joist. Now, if that rim joist ever fails or rots away, what we would probably normally do is cut out the sections on the inside that we can get to and just patch in new pieces. The floor, or the sill, on the other hand, requires us to take the load off of whatever section of sill needs to be replaced using a lally column. We'll lift this up, just take the weight off, and then cut this out. We have to move all this wiring out of the way, which is doable. It's all stapled in, no big deal. And we'll just cut this out, replace it. But you can see the water has attracted a family of carpenter ants. And it has caused so much damage, I want to cry. This floor joist is gone all the way to about, I'm going to say about here or so. That's probably where I'm going to have to cut it out. The one behind it, the damage is not as extensive, but the load-bearing part is essentially gone. And it hasn't started sagging or anything, at least from what I can tell. It hasn't dropped. So that tells me there's not a hell of a lot of weight on this. I mean, again, there's nothing above it. It's just a straight span. It's like a 13-foot span of floor above it. So we got off easy. This is going to be fixable. Now, I looked at some homes when I was shopping for houses that had severe structural deficiencies. I'm talking like, get me out of here. This place is going to go. So this isn't bad. I'm not really terrified. This does look all very fixable. But I have to check with some people that I know that are working in the construction field as to what I can get away with. So the other side, let's take a look at the other side. It's not pretty, but it's not nearly as bad. On this side, only one floor joist appears to be compromised, and it's this one. This one appears to be solid. I can't really poke my screwdriver in there and nothing happens. So I think I'm good with this one, and then this one's fine. And the sill is rotted to about this point, so I'm gonna have to cut probably around about maybe right here, and I'll pop in a new, I'll shape a piece of wood that fits perfectly in there. Not too scary, but not too great either. You can see this is the plumbing vent. It goes straight up into the attic. The good news is the rim joist appears to have escaped relatively unscathed. That's probably going to be the hardest part to fix, if I had to. How are we going to fix this? Well, let's start off by talking about how this was put together in the first place. So in 1954, when this house was built, what they did is they laid the foundation, they put the foundation walls in, backfill and all that happy stuff. And then they start adding framing. So they framed the first floor and the second, the walls and all that. This step was poured in place. What they do is they created their own mold, or their own concrete forms. And these boards here were only put for one purpose, just to hold the concrete while it's wet. And then it sets in place, and then, these boards can simply fall off. It doesn't really matter. They don't really do anything. These are not really the issue. But it's all formed right in place. And because it was in 1954, there was no such thing as pressure-treated lumber. Had they used pressure-treated lumber, this may not even be a problem. But going back to why this happened in the first place, it's because of water intrusion. Now, the way the siding of the home meets that step all the way on all three sides, there was at one point some kind of a flashing or some kind of a barrier to prevent water from pouring back into the house. Normally it should be set at a slight slope, and it should still be in that slope if it ever was, which will direct the water away. But the problem was worsened by a lack of any guttering. The entire front of the house has never had gutters installed. So all that water pouring off the roof lands on that slab and hammers it until eventually, one slight leak becomes a major catastrophe. And of course, time and whatnot goes on. Whatever sealant they used, it failed, and it just created a big problem. But the problem was worsened by the introduction of homeowner's friend, the spray foam stuff that I don't use that stuff very much. All right, it's okay if you use it right, but this is not using spray foam right. This is just masking a problem and making a worse one. So, how are we going to fix this? Well, I'm thinking, and I'm going to check with a few people that I know who do construction work on a professional level, if this is going to be acceptable. Been doing some slight research on the interwebs to see what people are getting away with. This is only temporary. I just don't want a draft in here. That's just going to soak up with water and fall out and whatever. Anyway, my proposition is this. I don't want to take out this entire span. It's just too involved, and I have a water main right here. This is I believe that's a 3/4 inch water main coming into the house. So it does give us a little bit of a challenge. What I'm going to do is unfasten all of this wiring all the way around. Just let it drop down. Then I'm thinking of cutting out up to here on this floor joist. Actually, I might have to go further back. Probably about here. I think you have to have like 4. If you're going to scab, yes, I'm going to scab it in. If you're going to scab in a floor joist, I think you have to do like a minimum of 4 feet. I forget where I got that number from. we'll cut out from all the way to the rim joist, all the way to about here, slice it, drop it out, carefully maneuver it around that water main. Of course, I got to take out these cross pieces, get those out of the way, so I can slide in a new piece and drop it in. I'm going to do that actually to both of these, so I'll stagger them. This one will come out probably about this far, maybe, right? Then the next one probably a little bit further. Then we'll kind of restructure this whole piece. I'm going to use, I'm going to see if I can use pressure treated. I don't know if that's legal or not for structural members, but I know that pressure treated is the way to go for the sill. So the sill, I'm going to restructure that. Nice piece of lumber, pop it in there, rip this all out, and I should be home free. Now, as for this side, I'm only going to do maybe the first one. Cut this one out, replace it. So what we're doing is we're basically creating a laminated beam. We're sistering and laminating all at the same time. Sistering a floor joist is when you take a damaged floor joist and leave it in place and pop in a new piece next to it. Scabbing a floor joist, which is not as popular, is when you run a floor joist part way along the span, or splice two together and put a piece of similar dimensional wood on one or both sides and nail it on both sides. That's called a scab. It's exactly what it sounds like. So I'm not really horrified by this. If I were to pay someone to fix this, it would probably cost me a few $1,000s, mostly in labor. But I'm going to do it myself. It's not really that complicated. Now, again, this house is made from, so today they use nominal dimensions. This was made out of actual dimensional lumber. So this is really a 2x6, or 2x8, sorry, 2x8 piece of lumber there. So, but now, as it comes to preventing this problem from happening again, in fact, we have to kind of do the prevention before we do the cure. And that's going to involve ripping off all the siding in the entire entryway, which isn't really much siding at all. I'm going to have to pull off all of the sheathing, which in this house is just basically what you see here. It's basically just pine boards. We'll rip off all that sheathing. While I'm in there, I'm going to re-insulate that entire entryway. I may have to repair some damaged 2x4 studs. That I'm prepared to do. And I'm going to resheath it. I'm going to come up with a better solution for preventing water intrusion. I also need to install a gutter along the main roof line. So it's going to be probably set aside around $2,000 or so in materials, maybe a little more. Siding isn't cheap, but vinyl is actually relatively reasonable cost-wise. It would be nice to do something nicer than vinyl, but again, I have a lot of things to do in this house, and that's just one of many. But that'll be a priority project for me. I'm going to start working on that in the springtime. I'm going to probably, I might have to pull a permit for this because it's exposed and people are going to see it. The building code enforcer walks by and sees me ripping siding off my house. He's going to ask me some questions and what the hell are you doing, and but I have to check with, actually the guy who's doing my roof would be the one to ask, because he is a tradesman. He may be a slow tradesman, but he's good, and he can tell me what I can get away with. But yeah, I mean, I looked at a lot of houses before I bought this one, and most of them, actually several of them that were in my price range, were in danger of collapse. Actually, one of them was. You see these lally columns? These are called lally columns. They're just concrete-filled steel posts. And in one of the houses I looked at, it had some obvious foundation problems, and these posts, which should be perfectly vertical, were sideways, like at an angle. Let me tell you how these work. So they're designed to transfer a load straight down, and only straight down. When they're at an angle, they're no longer doing their job. So, yeah, I didn't buy that house. And it was more money. But I can deal with that. And if you go upstairs and you kind of, so one major symptom of, a possible structural failure is sloped or bouncy floors. I have no bouncy floors. I have no sloped floors. The floors are all perfectly level. And as you can see down there, nothing has shifted. So everything is good. This is exactly where we're standing. This is that heavily damaged area. That's like right below my foot here. And that span goes all the way to the center. And again, I don't want to rip it out because I have ductwork, I have plumbing in the way, and putting in a full-length floor joist with all that stuff there is going to be a challenge. But anyway, owning a home is a challenge, guys. But once you get all this stuff fixed right, you can finally enjoy the comforts of what you've put together. And I can tell you that, one of the best things I ever did to this home was insulating that attic, because the house feels warmer, it heats up faster. It gets up to temperature very quickly now, whereas before it didn't. So right now that furnace should kick off any second now. It was only on for a few minutes, and that's probably what you want. Insulating that attic has actually helped, like with the bathroom. So when you run the shower, take a nice hot shower on a nice cold day. Yep, furnace is off now. Sweet. When you're taking a nice hot shower with an uninsulated attic, the ceiling becomes covered in water drops. And now, not so much. Now that it's a little bit nicer up there, a little warmer, the water doesn't condense as rapidly as it was. And not only that, but that new fan does a fantastic job of pulling the air out of that room. All the steam goes up. Currently, it's vented into the attic, but that, I need to stress, is not how it's going to remain. That's how it has been for many years, but I will be running that vent out to the soffit. First chance I get. It's just too cold for me to go out there and start cutting holes in my house. Really don't want to do that right now. Anyway, guys, the joys of home ownership. And I'm trying to get all my interior stuff done for the winter, so that I don't have to deal with it in the summertime when it's hot and sweaty and muggy. But this kitchen will be painted. I'm going to be painting it very soon. I actually thought about doing it today, but I just haven't really had the motivation. I've been working constantly. I did that basement room, which came out beautiful for my tastes. But anyway, the sun's hitting me nice. I got these awnings ripped off, so at least I can enjoy the sun while it's available to me, and it helps keep the home a little warmer. But anyway. Yep. This floor cleaned up nice. This is the original kitchen floor. I think I've mentioned it many times. It's got some cracks in it. This is asbestos, 9x9 asbestos, Armstrong tile. Armstrong's motto was, "Our asbestos is the bestest." And, hey, 65 years later, looks pretty good. So the guy who's doing my roof actually swung by. I sent him a message. I asked him, when you get a minute, can you come by? I have some engineering questions for you. And here's a gentleman who's been in the contracting and construction business almost his entire life, and he's pushing his late 50s now. So he knows a few things. And he did say that, I got lucky, first of all, because the house's structure really isn't compromised. Again, these floor joists are kind of underutilized right now. So, if we had the weight of a 3-story building on these floor joists, we might have a problem. But because the house is so overbuilt, we're in good shape. Now, basically, my original estimation of what had to be done and how to do it was actually pretty close. What he suggested that I do, and he offered to do it for a nominal service charge, basically, again, do exactly what I had planned. Now, that was to cut these floor joists Not the whole joist, just part of it, because there's 3 of them. They are effectively a laminated beam at this point. He wants to cut this one right here, tear that all out. He wants to cut this one right here, tear that all out, and replace it with brand new wood. And cut the sill, I think he said, as far back as right about here. Just cut it from here, replace it. And as for waterproofing, which is the reason this all happened, basically tear the siding off, tear the sheathing off, inspect the wall for damage, add insulation, new sheathing, but use Grace Ice and Water Shield or bituthane. Make a actually run if possible, run the bituthane between the sheathing, the outside of the sheathing, about a foot or 2 up or so, down. If possible, get it down between the slab here and the beam, which may not be possible. But he said if it can be done, do that. Secondly, and on both sides, of course, but secondly, throw in some lead flashing, and then build a what he called an out flashing, so the water runs away. So any water that's blown towards the house will run away like that, and caulk it to the concrete using a good heavy-duty concrete caulk. He said not to use aluminum flashing because aluminum flashing will oxidize and will separate from the caulking. He said that was something that within the past 20 years has occurred. Contractors no longer use aluminum flashing with silicone-based products for that reason. So I was on the right track. I would say the cost of repair will be fairly minimal. He did say that I'll have to support these joists as I'm working on them, especially this one here. This isn't really supporting a whole hell of a lot, but it does need to be secured. I may not be able to replace this right here. That may be a little bit too complicated, not complicated, but that may not be easily done. But again, once you remove the water intrusion, then you start removing rotted wood, as much of it as you can, and you replace it with good solid wood. As for, resecuring these beams, or this laminated beam as it is now, what he suggested that I do is use a combination of glue and framing screws to secure them together. It's apparently adhesives are used a lot in new construction, and it's actually they have water-resistant glues that can be used, structural adhesives, and you want to just smear the beams before they go together with glue. Apparently we now have structural screws that can be used to secure framing members together, and you just drive the screws in a staggered pattern. Boom, that is one solid beam. Once that all gets the clamping force of the screws with the glue, and you've got a solid structural member. Now, some of you may have differing opinions, some of you who may work in the construction trade, but this is just what I was told by someone who I know has been doing this kind of work for many, many, many decades. Furthermore, he wants me to put I guess you'd call it a block between these two joists, right where that cut is made. He did say that I should do that as well. And again, secure it with glue and framing screws. Once all that's fixed, should be good for a very, very, very long time, at least as long as I'm alive. And I don't care what happens to this house after I die. No, I really do. I don't want to leave a legacy of a building that's in shambles. I want to make a positive change on this home and make it better than it ever was before. Yeah, right. But anyway, so that's what's going to happen there. And I'm glad he came today because I was able to add this kind of this trailer to this, this ending piece to this video before sending it up to the YouTubes. So there you go. That's my structural disaster. Now, he said I got lucky because this is the only water damage in this entire structure that we can see. Now, again, I've scoured this basement. I found nothing like that anywhere else. Again, I routed through the attic, running insulation. I basically touched every spot, every bay, every part of this house I have seen, touched, felt, removed, insulated. That's not exactly 100% true, but the parts that I could get to upstairs in the attic there. Furthermore, he personally crawled all over my roof and found no water damage of any kind. So I'm really super lucky. That's all that I have. Now, there may be parts in the breezeway that may have some water damage. That's the room beyond that door. There may be some water damage when I start tearing all that apart. Let's take a look at that room and let's talk about what I've got to do in there. It's cold. Baby, it's cold outside. So in this breezeway, I have to tear all this apart. I'm going to have to pull this siding off. Yeah, it's like that. This siding's got to come off. And because it's all part of this whole boxed in business. These windows are going to come out first. Then I'm going to start pulling my siding off, hopefully in one piece, so that I can reuse it. These, because if you look, it's actually, the siding was installed after this was installed. So, boom, 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 pull this off. This is nailed on here. I'm going to get that part off. I'm going to try to keep all this lumber intact. Look at how wide those boards are. Those are expensive when you go to buy them new. But all this has got to be taken apart. Same with the outside, siding, flashing, all of it. And it's all going to be reframed to accommodate a standard 80-inch door height on both sides. And in doing so, I may uncover some nasty, nasty water damage. I doubt it. I really doubt it, but you never know. And full disclosure, I have to mention that I may not reuse this siding. I may actually do something a little different in here. I'm thinking of building these walls in so that they're insulated, so it'll be more like a standard structural or interior house wall. Because what I'm finding is that because this room isn't insulated, it's subject to rapid temperature fluctuations. Like, for example, we had a nice warm day. We had a cold, bitter cold night, followed by a nice warm day of like 60 degrees. And in that, because the temperature change was so rapid, I walked out here that morning and there was water dripping all over the place. The ceiling was wet. The walls were wet. There was water droplets all over this whole room. And it was like kind of unnerving because, I mean, that's pretty bad. That's not a good thing. So, in that and all that, it's like, maybe I should insulate this room and make it more of a separate living space that can be used for, actual living. Anyway, so let's move along through the structure. I'll show you the garage. Now, I've started cleaning up and locking the garage, apparently. But yeah, these projects are a long ways out. We're talking springtime, so I'll have some time to, rebuild my my savings a little bit. This has been a fairly expensive month. That's an understatement. But we will rebuild. The good news is I really don't have a lot of bills right now, so I'm able to put money aside for projects. I got lucky there. Don't have a car payment for the first time in my life. No, really. I mean, since I was 18, I've always had a car payment. I don't right now. Hopefully that stays that way. But anyway, I started organizing these shelves. I got the last of my boxes unpacked. This is all my contractor stuff. I got my paints, my automotive, and mechanical lubricants and cleaners. And then I've got my car care chemicals and waxes and some power tools. Gasoline. One of those is a premix. Hope it's still good. And yeah, got a little workbench here. So one of the projects that I need to tackle like soon is I need to get some power out here. All I have is one 15 amp circuit that's shared with the kitchen. So I'm gonna do a nice heavy duty, probably 5 gauge cable out here. And yeah, something real heavy duty. And I'm going to put a sub panel out here eventually. No, right now I think I'm going to just do a, I'm thinking like a 10 or maybe even a 12 gauge circuit. That's going to go back to the home run, back to the panel. And yeah, so I'm thinking maybe 10-3. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see what it costs me. I mean, it's going to be pricey to do it because when you start getting into the heavy gauge wire, the price shoots up. But I'll be able to use this garage for what it was intended for. Garagey things. You know, you do basementy things in the basement and garagey things in the garage. Anyway, who wants to see a video of that generator? I'm actually kind of itching to dig into it. It's a good running generator. We had it running about a year or two ago, and about 2 years ago, I think, was the last time it was run. It's an old Honda EG2200X. It was owned by a small engined airplane pilot, and he used the generator. I forget what he used it for. But it's only been run on avgas, which has a bluish tint to it, which is kind of interesting. So, sneak preview of that. There it is. But yeah, we'll be doing something with that generator. I don't know what. She's an oldie, but she runs. Now, generators have to be run. Otherwise, you know, they tend to lose their magnetism and they die. And but anyway, we'll be digging into that eventually, so I can't wait to get into that. In the meantime, I did have a frank conversation with my roofer, and I said, listen, man to man, what's up? Apparently, the one person that he works with, his helper, has been very ill as of late. I do know for a fact that his mother was in the hospital for pneumonia, so he had to deal with that on one of the days he was going to come here. As of right now, the roof ridge is sealed up. I mean, it's not a risk right now. It's watertight. But he still has to do the ridge cap, the vented ridge cap, and that's what all these are for. These are you already pre-cut his shingles. He just has to run up there with a nail gun and bap these suckers on there with the, he has a roll of, that right there. That's the ridge vent material. It's actually like an open mesh material. And I think there's this here's some of it. This is what it is. It's like a Brillo pad, and this goes over the ridge of the roof, and it allows air to freely flow through it. He's also going to open up my soffit vents as part of this contract. He has to do that too. What he does is he fires up that propane heater right there, which heats up these shingles so that they're malleable. And then he puts them on there with a nail gun. But he has to do that, and he said he would do that possibly as early as next week. He doesn't really need his assistant for that. As for the garage, he said he can probably get to it. It's not a big job. The garage is small. The roof is very small. But he might wait until spring to do the breezeway, which I'm fine with. I did pay him for the job, and I offered him more money. I said, if it's a matter of money, if you underbid yourself and you need more, because he really did give me a fantastic price, almost too good to be true kind of price. So I did offer him a little extra cash, but he said that won't be necessary, which I was shocked. He turned down more money, but okay. So that's what's going on with my roof. Him and I are in good terms. I understand his situation. He did give me a really good deal. It is what it is. But we're heading into, the dead of winter, and my roof still is not complete. And I have a giant hole in my savings account from the checks I wrote him. So, but he will do it. He said, hand to God, I'll get it done. But, you know, that's where I'm at. The biggest problem right now for me, though, isn't the fact that the roof isn't done. I mean, the big part is done. The water leaks are fixed. Yes, there were leaks. And that's all good. Leaks in the old roof. But anyway. The biggest problem I have right now is my Miata is in a rented storage unit. And it's costing me money every month to have it there. So every month that even if you go into the month one day, you still have to pay for the full month. And it's not cheap either. But anyway, guys, that's my problem. We'll get it done. We'll get to it, and this house will be even more livable. Yeah, about that. All right. Till then, guys. Thank you for watching.